Hi, I'm Eric Glotzer. Thanks for tuning in. Not being from Natchez, one of the things I've always found most interesting about this town is its multicultural complexion. Asians migrated to this spot 12,000 years ago. The Europeans from the other side of the world came here and founded the city we call Natchez today. And the Africans who built this town came from yet another continent still. These diverse cultures thrown together have left us with a rich and wonderful heritage. The recent opening of a West African art exhibit here at the Natchez Museum on Main Street offers us a rare glimpse into the world from which one of these cultures came.
The Natchez Museum of African American History and Culture is operated by the NAPAC organization. Many years, the two names have become synonymous. It is a depository of information and artifacts that pertain to the African American community here in Southwest Mississippi. And now we're reaching back to the African communities who were brought into this area. One afternoon, Dr. John Finley and his wife came to visit the NAPAC Museum and were impressed by what they found. At that point, we sat down and had a conversation, and they expressed to me a desire to have a location to house a collection of West African art and artifacts which was in their possession. After a few weeks of negotiations, we were finally able to come to an arrangement, and the papers were signed, and within a few weeks after that, the collection was delivered here to be displayed at the museum. The Finleys are a family of avid art collectors. They have traveled the world and in various auction houses to secure the many pieces which we now have on display here at the museum. Bits of the collection were originally on display at the New Orleans Museum, and they were then transferred to the Ora O'Keeffe Museum in Biloxi, Mississippi, who the folks there actually built a pavilion to house the collection. But Hurricane Katrina came along and destroyed that pavilion. Somehow or another, in the midst of it all, only one piece of the Finley collection seemed to have been lost in the storm. At that point, the family, who currently resides in New Mexico, retrieved the collection and took it back to New Mexico, where it had been in storage until it was brought here to the city of Natchez. Not only is it an exhibit of West African art, it's also pieces of Southern folk art, which they was also in their possession, which we now have on display here.
If you are the beginning people in civilization and you want to try to communicate something to someone, think in terms of trying to communicate it to the right hemisphere of the brain by using symbols, signs, and what's more readily available in the earliest beginning than your things in your surrounding. If you wanted to image and explain to people that we have this part of our brain which is very emotional, or we call it the animalistic part of our brain, then you would show an animal head on a human body as such. That would be an explanation without creating any kind of written explanation for it. So think in terms of the thousands of years of this skill being developed. Think in terms of dance, poetry, astronomy, construction work, pyramids, all of those things as being images that are designed to display, one, two, transfer an explanation, three, remind. For example, the mound builders, the early mound builders, they're saying, pointing up to the up above, and they're saying that at that narrow point pointing up above, that's the higher part of our spiritual being, and the big base or the broad base is more where earthbound activity goes on within our being, the emotions or what have you. And so there's a middle ground in there, and you begin to see what the African view of the world, the African center use of graphics, of images, not something that's called art for its own sake of standing and being, aesthetics and being looked at, being collected, being placed on a wall. That's essentially is a difference between a Eurocentric approach to art, to the uses of art, versus the African. We're talking about African having a utility purpose, having an esoteric and esoteric purpose, sacred, and it's coming from the same source, the imagination part of the spirit. Now, that doesn't have any distinction. Everybody has a part of the spirit where creativity comes from, okay, or where creativity resides. It's the perception of the projection of what you perceive into the world that gives you your distinct differences. It's your lifestyle, it's your culture, it's your heritage, it's your tradition that gives you your differences in the art. But the source of creativity is one, it's one. But we're talking about African point of view or Afrocentric view of the world and versus a European view of the world, and they're both like left and right hemispheres of the brain. One, African looks at the whole and takes the pieces and makes a whole. Europeans will look at the whole and dissect it and put it into compartmentalizers and departments and pieces and try to make sense out of the pieces as for standing in for a whole, representing a whole, as opposed to the African give you the whole.